Health Nuts, episode 21.
You're listening to Health Nuts with Dr. Chris Carr. Making lifestyle changes is hard for many people, and not knowing what to do or how to do it makes the task all the more daunting. Here at Health Nuts, we focus on helping you live a fuller life by discussing everyday health issues and exploring breakthrough solutions on how to overcome them. And now, here's your host, Dr. Chris Carr.
Welcome back to another episode of Health Nuts. I'm your host, Dr. Chris Carr. And I got to say, I'm real excited today. I've never had an optometrist on the podcast before, so we get to kind of move into that today. Today's guest, Dr. Jonathan Skoner. He received his doctorate of optometry from the Pennsylvania College of Optometry. He is the owner and founder of Ortho Eyes, Pittsburgh's first and only eye care clinic completely devoted to actively managing myopia with Ortho-K. He is a native of Pittsburgh, and he attended Central Catholic High School. So, Dr. Skoner, welcome, my friend.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for having me. I want to say I really appreciate being here and having the opportunity to talk to all your health nuts.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of them out there, and I have gotten some requests for eye issues just because of some of the toxicity issues that take place with contacts and solutions and things that can happen. So I'm looking forward to hearing you address this from a different angle and talking about your practice. And more specifically today, we're going to be talking about myopia. So that was the formal intro of you. Tell us a little more about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. To give you a little bit of background, I've been practicing primary care optometry for just about 5 years now, straight out of school. And in my primary care optometry experience, I've been heavily focused on pediatric vision care, and I do a good bit of adults as well. And I found that in my time in primary care, because of the way insurance is really curtailing, how we have to see patients, that it's turning into, more of a race of how many patients can you see than really quality time and getting to interact and answer the questions that your patients have. So personally, I had this dream to always be an independent person, and one of my goals after graduating from school was to go out and do a venture for myself. And this project that I'm working on is allowing me to achieve some life goals and some personal fulfillment goals as well.
Yeah, I love it. And especially when, someone thinks outside the box, it's a lot easier, especially in your profession, I would imagine, because there's a lot of opportunity for you to kind of probably get mixed in with bigger groups, larger settings, even kind of the Walmart, Sam Club, and Costco's of the world. And for you to go on your own, it takes a lot, and a lot of people aren't willing to put in the work.
Yeah, it's exciting. We can get into the details of exactly what it is we'll be doing at my clinic, but one of the quotes that I love is, "If everyone is thinking alike, then someone's not thinking." And I think that was General George S. Patton that said that. But it's an interesting quote, and you can apply it to a lot of ways in life. And I chose to apply it professionally to try to think out of the box and do something about it.
Yeah, I have a similar one where it's whatever everybody else is doing, do the opposite, and you'll be okay in life.
Yeah, I like that one. That bounces right off of what I said. That's good.
So today we're going to be talking, for the audience, we'll be talking about today's topic is myopia. So Dr. Skoner, what is myopia? Why is it such a big issue, and why did you decide to dedicate your career to it?
So myopia, we can start with what exactly it is. It's a vision condition where you are unable to see clearly far away without glasses or contact lens correction. So if you don't have your correction in your eyes or on your eyes, you can't see clearly. Some people call it nearsightedness, and it can be a little bit of a confusing term for people. But basically, it's becoming a massive problem. There is myopia research being done nonstop at this point because we're approaching epidemic proportions in the amount of the world population that has developed myopia. Just to give you an example, Chris, In the past 30 years, the United States myopia population has more than doubled. Okay, and then we're not talking like 2% to 4%. We're talking from in the neighborhood of the mid 20% to almost 50% of the United States. Okay, in Asia right now, it's estimated that almost 80% of the entire population in Asia is nearsighted or myopic, as we say. Long story short, by 2050, they're estimating that almost 50% of the entire world is going to be nearsighted or myopic. So there's a huge growing problem there. And as I said, as I practiced in primary care, I noticed that this trend is for myopia to continue to worsen and worsen and worsen year after year, specifically in children because they have such an actively changing visual system. Adults, we're actually seeing it happen as well. They don't have as much neuroplasticity, as much retinal plasticity. So, for example, an adult spending all day on a computer screen, we may see at the end of the day that their visual system is very fatigued and very tired. And when they get in the car to drive home, maybe their vision's not as clear far away. And sometimes we'll see long-lasting effects from that where it starts to change their vision, and other times they just bounce back after a night of sleep and do it all again the next day. But for children, we're actually seeing some long-term heavy impact on vision, where all of the electronic device use and indoor time is heavily correlated with a high rate of myopia worsening.
And I would assume that since, especially with the stats you just came out with the doubling of the incident rate, it's got to be a no-brainer that it's got to be the phones, the iPads, the amount of screen time people are putting in.
Well, exactly. So because of that rate and how high that rate is, we know that there's more than just genetics involved. If you just look at genetics and evolution, for evolution to take place, it takes hundreds or thousands of years to really a population shift of this magnitude to happen. But because we're seeing it so quickly, we know that, as you said correctly, there's environmental influences. And the big ones that we have found in research, we meaning my profession that I'm finding in research, is on-screen time, exactly like you said. And generally speaking, the closer something gets, the worse it is for you. And also, the longer you spend on it, the worse it is for you. And also, if it's a lit screen, the worse it is for you. So, for example, if you hold a book and a computer at the same distance, if you do both of them for long enough, they're both not good for you. However, a computer screen is going to impact your vision more heavily than a book will, from what I've seen. So, on screen time, and then the thing that correlates with that is outdoor time. We're not seeing enough time spent outdoors, and we found that to be heavily influential in the onset of myopia. The more time you spend outdoors before myopia actually happens, the less likely you are going to be to develop it. But there's also some research suggesting it can actually slow myopia progression as well, just spending some time outside.
Yeah, the neurology behind it as well. Just the amount that's going to affect the brain usage as well. It's obviously, how the nervous system is going to interact with the optic nerve and all the issues that are going to take place with that. So you have this parent, I'm going to kind of play devil's advocate here. You have maybe this mom who's got the two kids, and everyone gives electronics for birthdays, for holidays, and it's either the newest iPad or it's the newest phone. What are you recommending for parents when they have little ones who are on these devices?
That's a good question. I get that question probably 10 times a day. And the answer is, I think at this day and age, because we're such a digital culture, I think depriving children of electronic device use is, after a certain age, of course, maybe probably 6 or 7 years old. Before that, I really don't recommend it because the visual system is so influential. But depriving them after 6 or 7 years old of electronic device use can be difficult, if not downright impossible. So I do. I have recommendations that I give to parents that basically say, allow them to use the devices, but I suggest to stop using all devices 2 hours before bedtime, all lit screen devices. And I also suggest that if they are going to spend time on devices, make sure it's in a well-lit area. And a little tie-in here for chiropractic is that they have good posture when they're working on these devices. I don't like to see them leaning or tilting their head or, hunching over. And then of course it comes down to the amount of time they're spending on these devices. I don't like to see them spend any more than about a half an hour at one increment or one sitting period in front of a device. After about a half an hour, I really recommend that they get up, they walk around, and they engage their visual system in different lengths of focus. So they look at things far away and they look at things up close. And that shift in focus that happens inside the eye is crucial. That's why it's so important to get time outside, because time outside gives us all those focal distances.
So you have these kids, and especially within the school districts now, because they are, the kids are they're integrated in all the schools with iPads everywhere, and the parents are using them. Let's say you have the parent that doesn't listen. You're like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to pick my battles. I'm going to let them do what they're going to do. What happens to these kids at a young age if they don't control these time frames, if you will?
Well, unfortunately, I'm seeing that impact, both from, as you said, that kind of scenario, or even the scenario when children are getting on these devices too early, from 4 and 5 years old and up. And let's just give you an everyday example I'm seeing is that basically when those device uses are not curtailed, usually I will see a rapid decline in children's vision, especially if there's a family history. That's the other risk factor that we didn't talk about earlier. There's a big family history component, as there are with most medical issues, and the genetic component is huge for myopia, arguably one of the strongest. So if you have a genetic predisposition, in other words, one or both of your parents are nearsighted, there's a good likelihood that today the child will become nearsighted. But if they have that history and then they don't curtail the use of these devices, I might see in maybe 6 months' time their vision may double and become worse, 2 times as bad as it was when I first saw them 6 months ago. And then I see them 1 year from the original date, and they're 2.5 to 3 times as bad. And they have a staggering rate of worsening, which is leading to a lot of eye health problems down the road.
That's some aggressive numbers. 12 months later, we're talking about a 200 to 350% decrease in vision. That's a lot. And
it's very frightening. Just to kind of give you an example, for those of you out there who are familiar with how the numbers work in glasses, let's just say, for example, someone has a -1. -1 means kind of at arm's length. Everything further than arm's length is a little blurry. Everything closer than arm's length is a little clear. I might see someone back in 6 months and they went from a -1 to a -2. Now it's halfway out from their head is blurry, right? Then after that, let's say 2 years down the road, they're no longer a -2, they're a -450. Now it's from this distance and beyond is blurry. So the higher those numbers get, the worse the vision becomes. And once you get above about a -5, again, for those who are familiar with the numbers, which is a moderate to high prescription by some people's standards, the risk of eye disease starts becoming a huge issue later in life. So we have risk of glaucoma, macular degeneration, and cataracts. And a lot of adults, unfortunately, who are already past that threshold are at high risk or higher risk for these issues. And so the goal is to try to help the children from preventing them from getting to that level.
Yeah, I love this topic so much because it affects everyone. Everyone, probably not everyone, but 95%, 97% of the population, at least in the U.S., is going to have a cell phone, a smartphone, an iPad, a tablet, and it's everywhere, and it's affecting them at such a young age. And we haven't even gotten into the neurology portion of it, which is the amount of light, how that affects kind of the brain waves and the issues with lighting, how that affects overall health as well, which is something else we get into down the road. But so let's say the mom or the dad, they don't listen. The kid, the child gets diagnosed with myopia, or even the adult at this point gets diagnosed with it. What are the treatment options now?
So currently, the standard, of course, is get some glasses or get some contacts. The problems with those issues are that they don't do anything at this point to address to address worsening vision. And so if we go back to one of those examples where every 6 months the vision is changing, every 6 months either you're getting new glasses or replacing the lenses in them, and it becomes a very costly experience, or you're getting updated contacts and you have a whole bunch of extra contacts that you already spent money on. So that's the current treatment, is glasses and contacts. And of course for adults it's LASIK as well. LASIK for adults can sometimes be a great option for vision correction. But even if you were to have LASIK or have the current up-to-date glasses and contact lens prescription, of course, if the vision changes, if you've had LASIK, the results are permanent. And as far as glasses and contacts, we already talked about what happens. You have to adjust the prescription. So there's a lot of headaches and costs that are associated with the changing eyesight, even before we start talking about disease that comes down later down the road.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of, with macular degeneration, the glaucoma are some major ones, but even some of the minor ones, as I see it in the office, where patients will be coming in, they're having chronic headaches, and they're not going away, and they're getting some relief with what I'm doing, but they're not going away. Then I'll send them out to the optometrist, and they'll have their eyes checked, like, oh, the eyes are a major issue. How do eyes play a role with headaches?
Well, it's interesting. It kind of depends on the person. Generally speaking, poor vision, which usually is accompanied with myopic people or nearsighted people, is very typically associated with headaches. So if you take the average person and don't give them any correction when they actually need glasses or contacts, and you ask them to function in a daily life, by mid-afternoon, depending on how high the prescription is, most of them are going to have headaches, because it's very overwhelming. It's a very overwhelming stimulus to the eyes and the brain neurologically when everything is out of focus, because the eye's natural tendency is to try to focus. So those eyes are focusing all day long when everything is automatically out of focus. And when you're nearsighted, the eyes can't bring it into focus on their own. That's why you need correction. So a lot of those people are going to experience headaches. I would say a majority of them. And then the same holds true too for someone, even if they do have correction and their vision is worsened by so much in so much time. We may see that even if they're wearing glasses, they're still going to get headaches because it's not an optimum correction. It's very interesting how it affects each person. Everyone's a little bit different, but most people don't have a high tolerance for poor vision correction. They're usually very quick to tell. So.
Are there any other symptoms that pop up with somebody who is myopic that you come across, so that you see that's more consistent?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, Chris?
Are there any symptoms that you come across, other symptoms with somebody who is myopic or nearsighted? Is there anything else that they might be experiencing that they might not have been diagnosed yet, but it's a symptom their body's telling them it's something with their eyes?
So, of course, the number one would be blurriness. Blurriness far away and clear up close. But beyond that, for adults, the main thing would probably be headaches. And for children, I would say the main symptoms would be having trouble in school. They're not performing well in school. And if it's a high degree of nearsightedness, a lot of them can even struggle up close, because remember, you're not going to hold a test book this close to your face. So even the normal testing distance or reading distance may be a little difficult for them. So that can lead to headaches. It can sometimes lead to even double vision, where things start to turn into two and then come back into one, or even inconsistent clarity up close, where vision comes in and out of focus. Generally, those are the major symptoms.
And then outside of those symptoms, you talked about the treatment with the contacts and glasses. What are some natural treatments that you guys have?
Mm-hmm. So what we do at Ortho Eyes, we tend to look at myopia very differently. We don't have any glasses, and the reason we don't do that is because we want to try to treat myopia just like glasses and contacts do, but we also want to address the fact that it may be worsening. So we have these overnight retainers that you actually wear in the eye, just like you would for your teeth. The retainers for the eyes are meant to therapeutically reshape, without medication, no surgery. It's meant to reshape the front of the eye, and it reshapes it very similar to LASIK, but distinctly different. And so when you wake up in the morning after sleeping with these retainers, you remove them, and then if everything is going as planned as I would tell you in a consultation, basically you would be able to see clearly all day long without glasses and contacts. So it would correct your vision after sleeping in these retainers overnight. And that's the first huge benefit, which is unbelievable. It gives a lot of people the freedom, the natural vision that they're craving without surgery and or glasses, for example, or the risk of having a contact lens pop out of the eye or develop an infection and you can't see type of thing. But the other huge benefit is that we can very successfully try to slow or stop myopia progression, which is kind of what we were talking about before, the worsening of it. We can stop it in some cases, and in a lot of cases slow it down from worsening and take that rate that was, if this is baseline, take that rate that was up here and drop it down to maybe in here, or even, like I said, stop. So that's the number one treatment that we're going to focus on in ortho eyes, because I believe that to be not only the best, but the most ideal for a lot of people.
I imagine you probably get some deer in headlights when somebody comes into your office and you're like, I'm not giving you glasses, but here's this to wear overnight. And you probably get a couple of odd looks sometimes because it's not what the norm is. And that's why I love this, because it's the complete opposite of what most practitioners would do for this. And you're looking to get to the cause, not address the symptom, which is I'm all about.
Exactly right, Chris. I mean, that's glasses and contacts. Don't get me wrong; they do a wonderful job. They correct people's vision, and we couldn't survive without them. But this is a different modality. Like you said, we're addressing the issue of myopia. Myopia is really a disease, even though most people see it as just an eyesight problem. We're addressing the disease of myopia and trying to halt it in its tracks, rather than just passively watching it and say, "Oh, your vision's worse again, let's treat the symptoms again." It's akin to just increasing the dosage of your medication, when you increase someone's glasses prescription.
It's a good parallel. I completely agree with it. What else? So we have the treatment, and the patient's wearing the retainers overnight. What's the typical treatment time for them?
It depends on the prescription before we start. So that's something that I would give a very accurate understanding or expectation when I would do a consult. So it's a little hard to give you a flat out answer for everyone, but generally speaking, within the first 2 to 3 nights, you're gonna see a big difference. The first night usually is a very big difference, but it can wear off throughout the day. And so once that retaining shape starts to take hold on the front of the eye, the longer and longer you wear these retainers, the longer that will last. And generally speaking, 2 to 3 days in, it makes a very impactful difference where it's most of the day long. And then eventually I will get to the point where it's all day long without glasses and contacts.
That's awesome. Yeah, so there's progression, which is what I think most people would want to see, is that they start off one where they can kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel, and there's a map, whereas if it's just contacts and glasses, here, use these until they don't work anymore.
Well, that's just it. People love to see changes. I know I myself do. That's one of the things that I find to be so gratifying with this type of treatment. And for example, I see someone who one day they go to bed and they can't see the alarm clock, and then the next morning they wake up and I usually have people come in for a one-day follow-up just to make sure everything went well, and I want to make sure they didn't have any problems. And when I see them back for that first morning follow-up, and they're reading not just the big E on the eye chart, but they're seeing, halfway down the eye chart, you should see their eyes light up. I mean, it's a feeling that's pretty incredible because they couldn't see the alarm clock last night.
Yeah. And literally turning their light on, it would make, a lot of people feel it can be a crutch for a lot of folks, what they can and can't do, not wanting to put themselves in certain situations where they know their eyes are going to fail them. So it's going to be pretty gratifying on your end to be able to help change somebody else's life.
It's very gratifying. I'm very lucky to be able to have the opportunity to do it.
So before I let you guys have a couple other segments I want to get to, and with you being in this field and you thinking outside the box, I'm going to assume you're a health nut. You take care of yourself outside of your practice. What are 3 things that you do on a day-to-day basis that make you a health nut?
Oh boy, good question. So my 3 things. Well, one is I would say is I'm reading constantly, and I know I said don't read all the time, but I tend to do a lot of I tend to do a lot of reading on health topics and all the interconnectedness of them because, you know, you can relate entirely. You know that there's never just an isolated system. So when it comes to the eyes, a lot of people think, oh, well, I don't need my blood pressure checked when I'm at the eye doctor, or, you know, I don't need to worry about an MRI when I'm visiting an eye doctor. There's a lot of interconnectedness that happens between the entire body. And so I consider reading to be a very valuable resource for me because I'm always reading the latest up-to-date research. I'm learning about what works now, and I'm not waiting, you know, to wait until it's been around for 30 years. I want to see if I can make an impact now based on what I'm reading. So
Awesome.
I consider that to be a big one. Maybe another one would be as far as the general interconnectedness of everything. I believe a healthy body keeps a healthy mind. So I'm always trying to keep my body active, whether it's mountain biking or running or just being outside and just getting a break from all the stresses of the digital world. So I think that's very important. And then lastly, just kind of more focused on a specific thing is eating. I believe a balanced diet keeps me not only engaged mentally but physically throughout the entire day, and hopefully for my life as well.
Awesome. Those are great shares. So if you're able to now go back, because you got some years under your belt, you're able to go back to the future and talk to your younger self, what's some advice you would tell yourself years ago?
I would say it's important not to be blinded by what everyone else is doing. And this kind of ties in with what we were talking about earlier. Like you said, think opposite, do opposites, or don't just go with the flow of things. You know, when you're in school, whether it's professional school or undergraduates, you just kind of you observe a lot. You do a lot of observation and see what everyone else is doing around you, and the natural tendency is to just go with the flow. And I like to think I'm going against the flow now, but in you know, in hindsight, you know, I maybe would have done this sooner. You know, I would have taken my advice right now and tried to have done something with it sooner, but it's not too late. Never too late.
Never too late. Best advice you ever got, what was it?
Best advice I ever got was always do something nice for someone and never expect anything in return. And I try to do that every day, not just in a measurable action, but I try to think like that all the time. I try to make that my mindset because, you know, I feel good when I serve other people. So I try to serve and get everyone where they want to be in life. And I feel like that helps me get where I want to be.
It's always nice to come across someone who's authentic and knows who they are and not trying to be someone that they're not. And I think you come across really well as someone who's doing that. And people can say that they serve or they want to serve, but I can tell just from listening to you that it's in your heart, and to hear somebody else who's serving out there and not serving just to for something in return, but serving just to serve. It's exactly what I do as well. It's why I love to volunteer on my downtime as well. So it's a great share. Before I let you go, one last one before I let you go. Somebody's trying to get hold of you. How do they find you?
The best way is to check out my website. It's www.orthoeyes.com. It has our phone number on there. It's got my email on there. You can definitely reach out to me, Dr. Skoner at orthoeyes.com. And even if you just want to chat a little bit more, I offer free consultations. So people can come in, they can learn a little bit. I mean, even if you're not a good candidate for what I'm offering, I'd love to just tell you about it, and then, you know, maybe spread the word and just chat about it, because I have a passion for it. So I want to spread the passion.
Yeah, so I thank you so much for connecting and giving back today. So Dr. Skoner, it's been a pleasure having you on, and I wish you nothing but the best in your future endeavors, and especially with the natural eye treatment. I just can't say enough good things about it, and I'll be looking forward to working with you down the road.
Thank you, Chris. I really appreciate being here, and like I had told you personally, but I really value, I think everyone who's listening today is getting some valuable information, not from me, but just from listening to Dr. Carr with his Health Nuts podcast. I think that's a huge thing, and I appreciate that you're doing this for the community. It's a nice way to serve.
Yeah, I appreciate your kind words. So we'll catch up with you soon. And to the audience, talk to you next week. Look forward to it. Have a blessed week. Bye now.
So, you've heard from the experts yourself this episode and have gotten some golden nuggets on health. There is so much more to come and so much more to learn. Head on over to pghcw.com. Again, that's pghcw.com, and sign up for our newsletter where you'll receive free info on how to get and stay healthy. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Health Nuts with Dr. Chris Carr. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and please leave a review.